No, I mean, I wouldn't put you to do that. But if you're ever compelled to sing, I don't think there's anything that could stop you. So
Got
I
my
wouldn't.
instrument here, always ready to start a tune. You know, that's a
Yeah.
big part of my activism, the singing.
Yeah. So, well, I wanted to start with talking about Rainbow Gathering because that's how we met. But
Cool.
yeah, we definitely gonna have to talk about your singing and talk about how you got your nickname, Gibbon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start with Gibbon because you the first thing you said is how compelled you are to sing, oftentimes. So what is a Gibbon? Because I didn't really know what that was, and maybe other people don't either.
Right, right. And it's most of you will probably know that it's a sort of a monkey. Really, it's a big one, quite long arms and really amazing in the trees. I think I read it's the fastest mammal sort of climbing. Because what they do every day is they go around their entire territory looking for ripe fruit, and so they cover a couple miles easily every day just by swinging from branch to branch. Super high speed climbing, really impressive to watch, and because I'm very much into climbing, that that all added up, and the singing, of course.
I do see you in trees quite often, like high up in trees.
Yeah.
And then the singing aspect is kind of like the first way that I met you is so at the Rainbow Gathering, which um, I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is. It's kind of like a little a niche, a pocket of the population, right? That's drawn to these events. I don't know, what would you call it? An event. It's not a festival, quite. Like, how do you describe it?
Yeah, it's a month long gathering, usually about a month from new moon to new moon, with a big celebration in the middle, where people come together to co-create the new, well, a new way of living together. Living in balance with the people around them, and in balance and harmony with the environment around them, and celebrating life, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, I remember there's so many kind of different ways to think whenever you go into a community like that. Like, okay, sanitation, you have to really be conscious and have a plan, right? To not contaminate where you're living. And because a lot of the times you're in like the middle of nowhere or like in a forest, or in our case, we met in the Sahara Desert in the southern part of Morocco. And how do you have like 100, 200, or a big group of people co-living in the Sahara without like plumbing or anything like that? So how does the sanitation even work in those things?
Yeah, that was a really great experience, wasn't it? So what often happens in these rainbow gatherings, as I understand, is that there's a few people that think, okay, we need to think about these issues, sanitation. So they look at the surroundings and suss out where the waterways are, because all sort of feces and stuff need to go as far away from waterways as somewhat practical. And then that you walk somewhere walkable, couldn't be too far away either, and start digging some big holes, depending on the amount of people there, of course. And so when we were in the desert, it was all sand dunes, wasn't it? And then behind a few dunes down, there was the shit pit, as they called it.
Man, yeah, I was there only for 2 days. I had to get back to Spain to get back to teaching. Not too long after. It's quite a trek to get to the Sahara Desert in the first place, like coming from North Morocco. And wow, that's a big country. I did not expect how big Morocco was. But so I was there just a couple days, and you were there for quite some time. How long were you there?
around about 2 weeks, if I remember correctly. It was Muhammad El Rislan was the name of the town, right? Just like one road into the town, and then it ends just desert all around. You got to take the same road back out, right?
Yeah, and you had to bring your own cup, bring your own spoon. And then so for cooking, I was really impressed that they had different teams. They had like a cooking team, a cleaning team. They had there's only two teams that come to mind, but yeah, it was very harmonious living there. I really enjoyed how we would work as teams to accomplish those things, but then later they would have it was just everything was in the name of peace and just living together and sharing. And so that was really obvious whenever we'd have the songs. Like we would break out into songs almost at any point. Like like there was the before meal song, there was the after meal song.
Yeah.
That why do you think that's so integral?
Well, singing is incredible if you think about it. I mean, basically, you're using your whole body as an instrument, right? I mean, your lungs and all of these muscles in your torso and your throat and your head are becoming active and vibrating. So you're like creating your body becomes the instrument. All the cells are vibrating together. But then once you sing together in a group, then the people sort of merge together, become one, and that's just a wonderful thing. The way that evolutionarily we've evolved these complex larynxes to produce such a great variety of sounds. And yeah, so coming back to what we started with, the gibbons, right? They would have evolved singing. It's not obviously there's birds that do really complex song, and other creatures like sea mammals and stuff, dolphins and whales and wolves, and but yeah. So those gibbons, they sort of sing as a mating call to find a female, and then once they found a female, they partner for life, and then they train, they come together and sing as a couple throughout their life. And then once they have a child and the child is old enough, they sort of stay with the parents for quite a while. They actually join in the song, so it then becomes a family bonding exercise, and they get quite complex, those melodies and arrangements that those gibbons sing up high up in the trees. So you can see, what a great tool for all sorts of things this singing is, for finding a mate, for a powerful tool of attraction and sexuality, but then also of bonding. And imagine a football stadium full of people all singing together, and what power that holds, right?
Yeah, that's cool. The imagining a family of gibbons, which are like some kind of ape. You said like a gorilla.
Yeah, no, they are monkeys. I think they haven't really got tails, as far as I. Well, I'm getting it all mixed up. Been watching too many nature documentaries lately, but I think they're mostly Southeast Asian based, sort of China a bit, and further south, Thailand all the way there, and quite big, and yeah, strong arms, really fast climbers, and loud voices. You can hear them
Yeah,
over.
I do love that what you were saying, and just the image of okay, so you have one lone gibbon singing, attracting another mate with their song, and then raising baby gibbons, and they're all singing a singing family. That all right, now I'm compelled. Actually, I wanna check it out. So let's see if I could even share this.
Probably, yeah. There's some really good Gibbon singing on online.
Just pull up the first one we got. All right, can you see this?
Yeah, it's currently loading. There you go. Gibbon singing.
Come on, magical technology.
Yeah, no tails. I was right.
Getting closer. More closelier.
Taking its time to load.
Yeah. Do you sing like that, Marcus? Oh, that's so nice. Whoa. Yeah, okay. So that sounds like really familiar.
Yeah, there's like really cool videos of them going wild where you see them in zoos and they just speed along and really loudly. So it's worth checking out.
Nice. Okay. So when did you kind of develop these traits? You know, these traits of, well, the singing, like when did you really develop this love for singing, and what instruments do you play?
It all started very young. I was put in the cradle, so to say. I grew up in a really musical family. Actually, I learned that my father was a musician. Obviously, my grandfather was a musician. His father as well was a teacher and choir conductor and piano teacher, and so it like goes back a few generations, which is really nice. And we used to sing a lot as a kid, and so I always loved singing. And now I find it such a useful, powerful tool to reach lots of people, to convey a message, because compared to playing an instrument, you can put the lyrics in, and so you have like direct words that can really change a situation. And yeah, that's where it came from. I was lucky to go to a good school, learning lots of music in my education all along. Yeah.
And I've heard you play guitar, or maybe something even smaller at the Rainbow Gathering, like a ukulele or something like that.
I'm pretty sure it was this guitar here. It's my traveler guitar that I still move around with a lot. It still works really well.
That's
It's a
great,
small guitar.
man. Okay, and then what about the activism side of you? Because I don't think, I mean, people want to make changes, but then when it comes to actually doing it, that's a different thing. So, like,
Yeah.
when did you start doing that? Did your parents, were they kind of involved with that, or how did you start?
I mean, we were in nature a lot when I was young. I grew up sort of a bit in the countryside. The climbing you asked about, I did as a kid climb trees, and we used to go and build little tree houses as kids already in the forest nearby. So I guess that's where my love for it came from originally, and now it's just such a good thing to bring into activism, where when trees are about to be felled, to really make a stand and draw a close look, to draw the media attention onto the violence that comes out in that. But yeah, I did a lot of what was it you were talking about? Climbing or activism. Yeah, that's right. So I guess from learning about climate change fairly young, and threats to the environment, I always felt, well, someone ought to do something about it. And then there was I think it was in sort of a year or two before I finished school, they did a sort of a test in English, and it was, how green are you? I remember the question. Then you had to sort of answer questions, and do you drive a car, or whatever. And I realized that a lot of my actions are already quite aligned with sort of trying to reduce my impact at that time. And then during my studies after graduating from high school, I joined Greenpeace for quite a few years, and that's where my activism really started. I learned in the local group then a lot about the ways that politicians are saying things, and scientists are especially saying things that need to happen and where we're at. But the action is where it's lacking. The politicians are not doing what they're supposed to, and it's all sort of short-termist behavior, really. They just want to get re-elected. And so I got really involved then. And then later, you might see the Extinction Rebellion symbol that I tend to wear a lot these days, because I really identify with the approach that Extinction Rebellion chooses to go into activism, to have an inclusive space, to really use the best way that science is saying that we can bring about change, to actually make that change.
So that pin that you just showed, that's Extinction Rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Extinction Rebellion.
It's spelled just as the word
Yeah.
extinction.
Yeah, Extinction Rebellion, often abbreviated to XR. Extinction Rebellion. So basically, rising up non-violently, rising up peacefully, rebelling against the system, rebelling against a system that's based on continuous growth and run by the elites on a short-termist agenda, and saying we need to halt all extinction. That's like, we are in the 6th mass extinction right now. Scientists describe it as the Anthropocene, so the time of that dominated by man and its destruction, and the 6th mass extinction means that at the moment more species are going extinct, or species are going extinct faster than during the time of the dinosaurs when they left the planet. So that's really shocking. And they are talking about 200 species a day that we're losing, and it means extinction is forever. You can't get those species back. It takes a really long time for species to evolve. Whereas when they're gone, they're gone. And if we continue on the path that we're currently on, then that is a real risk for human extinction as well, because we're just animals like every other being. In the sense that we require habitat, and that means, food to eat, water to drink, and maybe some shelter to protect us from the elements. And we're systematically destroying all those premises. We're kicking our planet with our boots, and pretending, acting as if there were many of them, but we ought not to, because we need to continue to survive. Otherwise, there's that risk of extinction for humanity. And that's sort of where the words came from, specifically chosen very strong words, Extinction Rebellion. But a very good approach. Happy to tell you more about it.
Well, we'll get into that in a sec. What is that website?
Rebellion.earth is probably a good starting point. Just rebellion.earth instead of .com. You just put .earth. If you just Google Extinction Rebellion, you can find lots and lots of things.
Well, what struck me earlier is you said that from a young age, you knew how important it was. You heard of the science about it, and you knew that people needed to make a change. You did go to a good school then, because I wasn't really taught enough about that as a kid. They don't really dig deeper into that too much. So yeah, I'm putting a link in there, or trying to, seeing that it's having trouble, but rebellion.earth could put up. Boom,
there you go.
there. And but so then the extinction event, like you said, so I studied biology in the university, and that's when I learned about that. Is that right now we're going through a mass extinction event that is greater than than all the dinosaurs when they became extinct, and yeah, that's pretty jaw dropping. You said like 200 species we lose every day. It's unbelievable, and it's just something that unfortunately we've been so narrow sighted, and just so short term gratification, that we're able to, or just it's become commonplace that people just put blinders on, right? And they don't really uh, take the time to understand such an issue. And it's greater than just one. It's not one dimensional. You can't just look at one thing, even though the effects have become so great that you can see these, big numbers like 200 species we lose a day, or the size of the rainforest. But the bigger picture that a lot of people miss is like this incredible harmony that is every single species in its small ecosystem, even though no, so it's ecosystem and smaller component parts. But then as it gets bigger, the harmony just becomes more beautifully complex, where it's just so integrated that people, they don't really realize that you take out one piece of that and the whole thing kind of shifts a little bit. You take out multiple pieces, then it's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at today. So one question I wanted to ask you is like, how do you stay positive? How do you stay motivated to keep going? Where I remember when I was studying at university, one of my classes, environmental chemistry, and we learned about how toxic, nuclear plants, or just the rise in CO2 and the loss of the ozone layer, and like all these things. And it's just like boom, 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 boom. I was like, wow, we are screwed.
Yeah.
How can we fix this? So how do you stay positive when you'll see like a news story of just like, oh, the ice is melting dramatically at the highest rates ever, or all these things? Like, how do you keep pushing?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It is a very complex subject, and it is really important to think this through properly and to come back to it and re-engage. So at one hand, we need people to panic. Yeah, we need people to really realize that our house is on fire. And when your house is on fire, like Greta Thunberg says, you don't, measure the temperature again, or sort of measure the size of your hose output. It's like, can we actually put the fire out, or what are we going to do? No, you sort of act fast and decisively. You might grab your family members as quickly as you can and do what is necessary to protect as much life as you can, and then deal about the things later, and all that stuff. But yeah, so we need the panic on one hand, and it's quite tricky, as you say, not to get overwhelmed, because it is a global problem, and the fossil fuel industry has been really good at putting the blame on the individual. So the term carbon footprint has interestingly been invented by BP or Shell. I don't remember. It might have been Shell, actually, one of the big fossil fuel oil companies. Anyway, and it's sort of the idea that everyone's equally responsible for the mess that we're in, and we all need to clean up our act a bit more. And if we all do a bit, if we all take shorter showers, or walk to work once a week, or have a meat-free Monday or whatever, then things are going to be fine. But they're not going to be fine. That's why the house is on fire now. And so although we need to acknowledge that and keep coming back to that truth and that reality, we mustn't let it crush us, because it's not our fault. It isn't every individual consumer or citizen, maybe rather, that is equally responsible for the mess, but it is in fact 100 companies that are on a list, you can look it up, that are about 75% responsible for all the carbon emissions that have ever been emitted, right? So those 100 companies' responsibility is so much greater than any person on this planet, even be it the president of a really important country that has a lot of power sort of combined in one person. Even that one person doesn't carry as much responsibility as those companies and as the system that's constantly built on growth. So we got to do many things. We got to hold on to that dire truth. We got to not let it overwhelm us. But one really great way to engage with it without it being crushing is to become active, to let the emotions to allow the emotions to come. We need to create space for grief, and we need to create space for anger, and we need to create space for devastation and these really strong feelings, to realize that we are the generation after about, I don't know how long humanity's been around, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 generations, I think. We are the one generation now that are going to see the change where after us they can't do much more anymore, and the before us they weren't really aware of it yet, unfortunately. So it's going to be us or no one to make significant changes, and even if we don't make them, we will see dramatic changes because they are coming. And so we need to let those feelings come in. We need to find time for grief, and maybe find other people to share grief with, because bearing it all by oneself is really hard, and you can easily slip into a depression. But a really great way to use those emotions is to take them into action. Yeah, to apply the energy from those heavy emotions into doing something about it. Yeah, reading more about it, learning, becoming an expert on it, talking to 3 people about it every day, trying to reach out. And that will be a hard one as well, because lots of people, as you say, they just want to shield off and don't want to hear about it. But there are a lot of ways that you can make a difference, be it online to start with as a so-called keyboard warrior, writing emails or signing petitions or sharing content on social media, whatever. And then over time, getting involved with groups like Extinction Rebellion, we focus on what's called direct action, or nonviolent direct action, NVDA, where we sit down peacefully in a road to draw attention to a problem. And some people even do trainings to what it feels like to get arrested. I've been arrested a few times myself. To make a stand, it's a very powerful thing to do, to let my own liberty and freedom be, jeopardized for a while. It's a sacrifice to make, to say, I'm willing to make that sacrifice for the greater good. And then if you are already on that activist track, the answer to your question is once again a little bit different. How do you not let it crush you? Because there are these activists that are like, okay, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to work as my butt off. I'm going to really turn my energy into the activism. But that in the past and throughout lots of movements in history, that's led people to burn out. Yeah, they give all their energy, and then they also end up in a depression or in a really bad space. So the Extinction Rebellion really focuses on an aspect. One of our principles and values is on regenerative culture, so that we create a culture for our planet to regenerate and for our planet to continue on a regenerative path where it's long term, where we can sustain a new lifestyle that will come about, but also as activists, so that we look after our own well-being first and foremost, but also of the people around us, so that we take time out and we take time for those heavy emotions and do all that processing, as well as then going back to more action. And that's a really powerful process. And I invite as many people as possible to join that, really.
Man, yeah, I can imagine that it's quite challenging to just bear those emotions, but they are so important because they're the fuel for the change.
Yeah.
So you need that grief of, wow, we just, in California we're having fires like more than ever. So the fires are larger than ever. They're more destructive. And so that's that's a lot of grief. Like, we should make change for that. Like, let's not have as many fires or floods elsewhere, freeze, these hard freezes that actually right now in southern United States and New Orleans, Louisiana, Texas, right now, they're out of power and
Wow.
they're just freezing. This is completely unusual. So yeah, that could be fuel for the change. And but so I thought that was really great what you said, is to have this space for these different emotions, for that reason. Again, repeating myself, just cause and change. But then the burnout is kind of, I guess, my concern with that question, or why I asked it. So balancing it out, is there any techniques you guys have to like balance that negative energy, I guess, lack of a better word, with something positive, or like after your movement, or after you after you got, so I saw you most recently, you were in a few trees to prevent them from destroying those trees for some construction.
Yeah,
What's the word?
mega infrastructure project they are building here.
Infrastructure. That's exactly what I was looking for. So after you succeed in that, even though, yeah, they evict you from the trees, but you still succeeded in doing what you came to do, and you got the media attention that you needed to progress that project. So how do you celebrate, I guess? Is there a conscious effort to balance out that emotion?
Yeah, I think it's important to find a balance. You as I said, it's sort of like a regenerative circle almost, where you plan an action, come together with certain people, you weigh up the different tactics and strategies, and it might be an important point to say here that we would love not to have to do these things because they are inconveniencing people. We are people. When we block a road or something, we sort of inconvenience people, but there is unfortunately no other way to do it anymore. We've tried signing petitions and writing to our democratically elected representatives letters and emails, and even go to their offices and say, please, can you do something and stop this madness? But it hasn't helped. 30 years have passed of us knowing what we're about to face, what we're about to see, the changes. So that the direct action is unfortunately necessary. And as you say, there needs to be a space for balance. So after the action itself, you can find different ways of we call it regen, just short for regenerative time, right? So it's a time to come together with friends or family and do something completely else. Take some time, some healing, some well-being, take a bath, just relax, do some meditation or yoga, or a lot of rebels that are in a city, like I live in London now. They can be really helpful on the scene there when things are happening. And then there's lots of rebels that want to support, and they live out in the countryside. So many of them offer a place to stay where people from the cities can go and then be in nature, immerse themselves for a few days, go for walks in the woods, and reconnect to the beauty that is there still. And that can really be a nice way of balancing those very difficult, strong emotions in actions.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that a lot. So rebellion.earth is the website, but the group, the cause, the movement is Extinction Rebellion. It sounds like you guys have this really thought out. You're not just aimlessly doing these things, obviously. Can you tell us more about like the strategy that you guys implement to actually cause change and not just be like a flash in the pan kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. That's a good question. In terms of one of the things you said made me think of Occupy, a fantastic movement of bringing about change a few years ago. But what I think was a bit lacking, as far as I understand, and I'm no expert on it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't a common demand or a common set of demands that they came together to say, we actually need exactly this to happen, and this would be a way to achieve it in order to bring about the change that they wanted to. And so what we are doing is Extinction Rebellion started with a bunch of scientists and activists coming together saying, well, we've had 30 years of continuous destruction of our life basis for life, for continuous,
Our home, our everything,
our home,
our food.
I wonder if I have to answer that call. Sorry. And so they said, what we need is some strong demands, and then look at the past, look at the science, what sort of uprisings have happened, and what really brought about change most effectively in history. And so what they've learned is that if you come together as a group, that's a great way to make change. First of all, you can either then rise up in a sort of violent fashion or aggressive, or there's been lots of non-violent uprisings as well. And those latter ones, they always have a much higher chance of success and a higher, a better outcome afterwards, right? If you have violence in the transition, then there's a chance for a violent aggressor to take the role of a new leader, and then usually it's worse than before. Whereas if it's a non-violent uprising, the chance of achieving the goals is much higher. So that's definitely our chosen path, non-violence. And non-violence doesn't just mean being passive at all. In fact, it's quite to the contrary, where when you sit in harm's way, where you put your body, sometimes you sit down on the road, sometimes you just stand there holding a banner, or sometimes you sing from up a tree. You're peacefully there. You're not going to resist when they come and push them away or anything. Some people sometimes write on the social media, why don't you just cut their ropes? And it's like, no, that's not what we do. It's the wrong approach. They know very well how to deal with that. They are very well trained police forces and eviction teams and so forth to deal with violence, but it really creates the change that we need when we do it non-violently. So the 3 demands of Extinction Rebellion, which are really powerful, and I should say it's a decentralized movement. So if you look at the 3 demands and the 10 principles and you agree to those, you can start an Extinction Rebellion group wherever you are. There's no hierarchy. There's no need for checking in with, the boss or something if you want to do something. But you look at the 3 demands, you look at the 10 principles, and then you can do actions in the name of Extinction Rebellion wherever you are in the world, which has a lot of positives and sometimes a few negatives as well. Sometimes people have chosen to do actions that the vast majority of the movements were against, and those are then held nicely by the media as criticisms against us. But of course, that's what happens in a movement. One of our principles and values is that we value reflecting and learning. So we try out things rather than thinking it might not work, so let's not try it. Let's not do this action because our house is on fire. We're in a crisis now. We have to act quickly, and if we make some mistakes on the way, then that's fine. We'll try to make it better next time. Let's just get to action because the politicians aren't doing it. The governments aren't doing it. So the 3 demands are: tell the truth is the first demand. Yeah. So I've mentioned this before, this really sad, dire truth of the situation that we're in, this mass extinction, as we've mentioned it, but also the way that climate change is progressing at such unforeseen rate, and ice sheet melting happening faster, desertification, stronger storms, flooding, droughts and fires, wildfires, as you mentioned, in California and all over the world. Siberia on fire last year.
Australia was really bad.
Australia horribly on fire, and so forth. I think 14 out of the 15 hottest years in this century or whatever, constantly breaking temperature records. And that not meaning that our life here will get more comfortable and more warm, but rather that it just gets more extreme. As you said, those extreme colds and extreme water rainfalls in one spot, and then an extreme drought, and that just kills the crops. So what we're looking at is mass starvation. These are all parts of the truth that needs to be told basically every day on the media. It should be, what we're facing, what we're looking at, and how, especially in the name of climate justice, how those that are least responsible are most adversely affected by it, right? So the people in the global south that, don't have a carbon footprint anywhere near the developed nations, and they didn't start the industrialization, they're not responsible. They've been colonized and treated badly by white people in the past, and now they're the ones suffering the worst effects of this climate change that mostly came from industrialized nations with all their carbon output. And that other vulnerable groups like women are much stronger affected, not yet so much in the developed nations, but once again in the global south and so forth, and people of color, indigenous people, all those need to be in the center of the struggle as they are the ones worst affected. And so that's all part of tell the truth, the first demand. And the government and the media need to tell this truth urgently, daily. And so that the second demand is that it's really important to say and speak about these things, but that's not enough, because the physics will continue to change. The temperature gets hotter, the climate changes, and we can't argue, we can't have a debate with the planet about if that's right or not. But like they do in politics, like say, maybe you were wrong or whatever. But it's just, that's the change that's happening, and so we need to make the appropriate action. So demand 2 is act now. And specifically, that means halting biodiversity loss by 2025 and drawing down carbon to net zero by 2025, where Extinction Rebellion first came about in 2018 in October. And so that was like, 6 years, only 6 years ahead. Now it's like more like 4 years to go to this target. And so they were always saying, this is not politically practical. But unfortunately, we must go beyond what's politically practical to what's necessary for survival. So act now, the second demand. And then the third demand is to acknowledge what I've mentioned in terms of the short-termism and the stuck ways that our democracies, so-called democracies, are, with those elites getting into power and oftentimes being so corrupt, with money being pushed forth and back, and then they just focus on the short term. That really needs to change.
Wait, sorry. What is demand number 3?
So the third demand, I haven't mentioned it yet. It's called
sorry.
beyond politics. Beyond politics, meaning we mustn't argue about those details anymore and have those short-termist approach, but rather create what's called citizens' assemblies. Yeah. So a citizens' assembly is basically an upgrade of democracy as we know it so far. It's like democracy 2.0. Instead of having a few elected individuals that make choices for short term, what we need is basically a representation of the country, where we randomly select people, rich and old, and young and poor, and north and south, and men and women, and of all ethnicities and cultures and all that stuff. So basically, instead of having a few white men making the decisions, you get a real life picture. So for us here, a mini UK, mini United Kingdom, or mini USA coming together in like a group of 100 or 200 people that are randomly selected, and that are coming together for short terms, like let's say 7 weekends in a row or something, where on those weekends they come together. There will be like a cleaning person and a bus driver and a lawyer and a doctor and all different starting points of knowledge. So the first step is, of course, information, right? So you get all the different angles to the subject, the matter that needs to be discussed, in our case, the climate ecological emergency. And they are presented by people to those 100, 200 people, the citizens' assembly, representing the country. And then after that information and deliberation process, they are sitting together on little tables, like 10 to 12 people, all nice and mixed, an old grandmother with a student, and and then they make these conversations. They ask all the questions, and everyone has a chance to speak. It's not just the loudest and the bravest and the white men that get to speak out, but everyone has a really balanced, well-moderated chance for all questions to be answered. And then at the end, the Citizens' Assembly makes a decision that is effective long-term for the well-being of everyone. And yeah, they would just, it's not us saying we have all the solutions. We know as a movement, as a group of activists, what is best for humanity or for our country. No, we want the people to decide. We want this citizens' assembly to come together, representing the country as it is, and they make the decision of what's the best way forward.
Citizens' assembly. Man, you guys got the terms really nice. Like, they really capture, and it you know exactly what you get into. But counter to what I just said, can you tell me more about that? So it sounds like a reforming, or like a parallel government kind of entity that I guess isn't institutional like a government, but we're trying to redesign this, like a government kind of thing. Like, trying to wrap my head around citizens assembly. Like, so 200 people randomly chosen,
Yeah.
maybe by.
It's very similar to a jury service, you see. When they come together for jury service, fairly well known, then they have to make a decision, they talk about it, and then they make a decision, and then they go back home to their jobs. And that's supposed to be the same for citizens' assemblies, where they come together for a number of weekends. If they need childcare, you know, all that, those services need to be provided. Sometimes they go into a hotel. I mean, this is not completely new. This has been used for many years in many different countries, in universities. And one of the most famous examples is Ireland, where a very, very Catholically dominated country, where a decision was basically in a gridlock, being if abortion should be allowed or not. Because we are in the 21st century, abortion is pretty standard in most Western countries nowadays, to some degrees legal, depending on the situation. And because of the strong Catholic background, it was a huge problem. And all the politicians couldn't touch it because they knew they would lose all faith. All the voters would not re-elect them if they would make either decision. So they put a citizens' assembly together, very similar in the way that I described it. They came into a hotel. They all had their private rooms and their space that when they needed it, and then they would come together in those conference rooms, discuss around tables, learn about all the different issues. In this example, they would learn about, you know, the religious point of view, but the ethical point of view, the women's rights point of view, the medical point of view, all the different perspectives to the matter of abortion. And then at the end, make up their mind and decide, when they did decide that abortion should be legalized and that the women should be in control of what decision they need to make. And so that was groundbreaking. Nobody had sort of seen that coming in a country as Catholic as Ireland. And yeah, so it sort of shows that how it works. Of course, it's never going to be perfect. It's still democracy. There's always people that are a bit biased and so forth. As criticisms are possible. We're not saying there is a perfect system, but it is a much better system than what we have. And to answer the other question you asked, it would sort of sit parallel to the government and instruct the government. It would say, okay, now the people of this country have decided, or you can have a citizens' assembly also for smaller areas, for a state or just for a city or even just a borough, a neighborhood, whatever, to make a decision for that area. And then the executives, the executive power, the president or the prime minister or the government, whatever, they need to then adhere to what the people have decided and follow their decision and stick to that and implement that into law.
So this has already been successful in Ireland, in that case you described, and many other places. I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, it has been. I'm just opening a website. Here we go. That, because you said I can also share stuff in here. Let me try that. Where do I throw it in? Private chat, comments.
No, it would be at the bottom where you share your screen.
That just gives me a video file or share screen.
You could send it to me and I could share it if it's easier.
It's xrcitizensassembly.uk is a website that is a really good resource for those interested in reading up and sort of more the ins and outs and how it exactly it works. I must say I'm no expert on it yet. I'm like still hoping to really fully understand the ins and outs of it. I think I've got the basics down as I've just explained it to you. But yeah, sort of more complex questions can probably be found there. Cool.
All right. Well, I sent it into that group, the group chat, but this is the page itself. Should be coming up.
xrcitizensassembly.uk.
Do you see it?
Yeah, I can see it now. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So yeah, this is a good resource for learning more about the Citizens Assembly. So is this Extinction Rebellion? Did they start this, or how did it start?
No, citizens' assemblies are an idea that has been around for a fair few years, and it was just Extinction Rebellion that is, as I said, it's sort of a science-based approach of trying to make the best change or the changes necessary in the best way possible. So this is sort of as far as I know, the best way to improve democracy at the moment. Yeah, there's other suggestions of how you can improve democracy, of course, but this is really inclusive, like representative of the people in the country, and it's practically doable. You see, it just needs education, and the people need to be told about it. It's very few people seem to know about what citizens' assemblies are and what they can do. They actually started a process after Extinction Rebellion first came around. I mean, as I said, it's been around since 2018. There's been a bit of development already. The United Kingdom and a fair few other countries have declared a climate and ecological emergency in their government. And then last year, the government even created something similar to a citizens' assembly that discussed certain questions around climate, but unfortunately, it was a non-binding group of people. So they did sort of, on paper, on the first glimpse, it might look like the right thing, but it's not binding for the government. They can just easily ignore anything that the people have said there, and we can already see that happening now. The UK government has come out with like a committee on climate change, and all their recommendations are we're not on target for anything in this country, and I'm pretty sure that's very similar in the States as well.
Okay, well, I wanted to go back to Extinction Rebellion a little bit more, or at least in something you mentioned that I thought was really cool. That was, well, I'll put up their page right now, rebellion.earth. If I learn how to spell it. Almost. 2 eyes. No, not 2 eyes. But so you said that you are trained on getting arrested. Like, what is that like? Like, what is that training? It's just like mentally preparing you for this?
It's a whole bunch of different things. Yeah, mentally as well as legally, as well as physically. You can choose to let yourself be carried away by officers rather than walking. You can also choose to walk with them, depending on what you think is the better approach in the situation. Yeah, it's called NVDA, nonviolent direct action. Yeah. So it's not something that is any news. Mahatma Gandhi used nonviolent direct action after he learned about it from indigenous New Zealanders, Aotearoa. The Maori people were there. The British colonialists were coming into the village, Parihaka, I think it was called, and with people on troops on horses, and instead of having like war weapons and stuff to defend from them, they just had children. They had children on the road dancing, singing in a round, and the military on horses with their guns couldn't do anything. They couldn't go past the kids dancing in the road, and all the elders were just peacefully sitting in their place of worship and doing their sort of meditation type religious stuff, peacefully resisting. Right. So nonviolent direct action, and in a training you explore the term of violence first of all, because it's not a black and white thing. You don't really know, one thing that might be violent for some person might not be violent for another. It's a spectrum rather than a black and white thing. And then it's also a bit interesting to see what's socially acceptable and what isn't socially acceptable. So you have a few spectrums, and you learn about what actions different people view where on those spectrums and how. And that's one cool exercise that I remember from the training.
So you're trying to not get arrested as long as possible. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like navigating those parameters, like the
Um,
boundaries?
no, that is a tactical question that you're asking right now. I'm still sort of in the more general explanation of why we might want to get ourselves arrested and what things
Okay.
might be a reason for arrest. But
Okay.
yeah, so in
All
the
right.
training you learn all those things. You learn about what it feels like. You sort of stand in a row next to each other. You might just stand there by yourself, or you might lock arms together, and then another group pretends to be a police officer, and then you shout at the other person like really loudly, and you as a protester stand there and just feel into your body what it feels like to be in this situation, right? To prepare in a safe space for what you might encounter by a security force or by an officer in real life. You learn about the legal arguments, you learn about the tactical elements. Yeah, so if a police in the UK, every country has their own sort of ways that the police engages with protests. In the States, it's much harder, as I understand. As far as I've seen, the NYPD and stuff going in with tear gas and
Riot shields.
pardon?
And the giant riot shields that are
Riot,
infantry.
right? Yeah, it's always very frightening. I so far have been treated fairly well with the arrests that I've encountered in. One tactic, for example, is to go floppy. So instead of walking with the police, you can have them carry you. So in the trainings, you get to practice what it feels like if you sort of curl up in a ball and then have people carry you like that, or if you go completely limp, right? You let all muscles go loose, and then they have to carry you. And it takes way more people to carry you if you're limp, compared to if you're sort of tense. You tense your muscles. So if you want to occupy more people, if you want to, if it's in your wish that more police officers are required to get you away from where they want to move you from, then going limp is probably a fairly good idea if you're physically comfortable with that and if you don't feel vulnerable about it. And then last year, Extinction Rebellion and other groups came out with what's called extended non-cooperation, where you continue not cooperating with the authorities to continue to make the point that we're in a climate ecological emergency and that the authorities are complicit with the system and that they have a lot of power in bringing about change. So when I was brought to the police station, I told them that I'm very sorry, but that respectfulness is very important, but that I'm not going to walk out of the van and that they would have to carry me again. And so they carried me sort of into the police station and dragged me along. And then there's what's called the desk, where they sort of normally you stand there and they take your details and measure your height or whatever. And I was just lying there on the floor, singing my heart out, and not cooperating with the machine, with the system. And then when I had everyone's attention, I was lying there in the police station. They were like, "Yeah, you made your point. There's no more cameras on you. Why are you still going limp? And why do we have to drag you around the station?" I said, "Well, you're all complicit with the system. Have you heard of the Nuremberg trials where the police officer said, we were just following orders. We're innocent, right? But somehow the Holocaust wouldn't have happened with them." And some people have made a comparison to say we are in a sort of global Holocaust sort of situation now where the governments are complicit with gassing the entire planet, which is an interesting comparison. We have to be, of course, very careful about the suffering that has been caused to groups like the Jewish people that have been, horribly treated and killed in such. So genocide is a very strong thing, and we're not trying to play that down and in any way. But what's happening now, as far as I see it, is a complicit destruction of people, which is a mass genocide. It's ecocide, we call it. Mm-hmm. When you destroy the grounds that we need to live on, the nature, the places to grow food and so forth.
I love how paramount that is for you, how important it is that you and Extinction Rebellion, it's everything, and it should be. this is our entire life. This is our grandkids.
Yeah.
This is our whole livelihood.
Mm.
So, but I'm imagining you just being non-compliant and just, going flop style in the floor of like a cell or wherever they have you, and you're just singing. Um, that's beautiful. And so I have so many questions. I guess while we're on it, just what were the other times you got arrested? Can you talk about those?
Yeah. The first time I got arrested was in England at a protest against a concrete factory that was built right in front of a school. We were hoping to stop that, and we did actually manage to delay construction for like months and months because of our protest. There'd been a petition of like 20, 30, 40,000 residents around saying, no, we mustn't have even more pollution. This is already breaking the law for pollution values, and children's lungs are 10, 20% smaller because of that. And it would mean like 580 trucks driving past that one school right opposite every day. And we were like, okay, that's enough. So we just peacefully sat there, held a banner, sang and stuff, to block the work all day. And that was my first arrest. Last year, I got arrested a few times, specifically targeted by the police out of a crowd, because as a musician, I was sort of making, bringing the good mood, bringing the vibes.
Yeah, you're the heart of the vibe. Like the energy is coming from that guitar, that voice. Get him,
Get him!
they're too happy.
That's exactly how it was. I wish I had prepared the video for it that I could share here. Let's see if it just happens my computer to find it. And yeah, so they picked me specifically out of the crowd for playing a song on my ukulele, and dragged me away. And the crowd went like, "No, stop this guy! Stop them from arresting our musician." And then another protest there was a critical mass last year in September where we all cycled peacefully, and a few people decided to lock on. We crossed the bridge over the Thames, and they decided to lock onto their bikes, and we were like, okay, well, we can't go any further then. And the road was sort of blocked. We danced for a bit, and the police just totally over-escalated completely unnecessarily, and they decided to arrest all the 250 people on the bridge, or however many it was. They kettled. Is that the word? Yeah. You put
like a perimeter
cordon around it where they just stand sort of shoulder to shoulder, and no one was allowed to leave the bridge, even though we really wanted to leave, and we were peaceful and nonviolent and didn't want to block the bridge, but they blocked it. The police blocked it and arrested everyone, including everyone's bicycles. So they had to deal with all these people, and I went floppy again, and it took 4 months or something to get my bike back, and it was totally rusty and stuff. They left it out in the rain.
Oh, man. So I do have a video of you singing. Did you find the other one?
Let me have another look. If you want to show that one in the meantime.
Yeah, this is awesome. All right, coming up. A few seconds. Yeah, this is from your Instagram, and I love the lyrics too. Like on all of your songs are really positive and upbeat, but this one.
The change that the world needs to see. We'll be the change that the world needs to see. We'll be the change that the world needs to see. And we want climate justice now. What will you do about the crisis you denied? What will you do about the crisis you denied? What will you do about the crisis you denied? Join us, swim against the tide, and we'll be the change that the world needs to see. We'll be the change that.
Oh man, that is good stuff. I actually get that stuck in my head and enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, that was a song, originally a sea shanty called Roll the Old Chariot Along. And I heard it and I had such good energy. And I said to a couple of my friends, I said, we got to write some climate lyrics for this and some appropriate words. And so Be the Change came about based on this famous Mahatma Gandhi poem, of course.
And you were singing that while you were in the trees, which are on the screen now, for that latest protest. And you were singing that same song. I remember watching your the live stories or the stories, and really enjoying that. So,
yeah. I'm just pulling up a very recent live stream that we did in the last eviction last week. It was about 8 days ago now. I've got the thing here. Video.
So do you want to try share the screen yourself?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, might not work in this browser. One sec. Yeah, so there was couple of evictions that I've been part at in the last few weeks. One is still ongoing. It's called the hashtag is Battle for Euston. So Euston is EUSTON, and that's a train station here in London. And it's part of a huge infrastructure project called HS2 High Speed 2, which at first sounds nice because it's a train, and we need more trains and we need more public transport in the future, rather than airport expansion and motorways, which they are also continuing to build. But unfortunately, this high-speed train is absolutely outrageously destructive. It's the biggest tree felling project since World War One. It's taking people's homes away and people's lives just randomly for building an access road instead of going around people's property. It's called compulsory purchase order. Imagine you lived in your life all your life in a house that you build with your family, you set up a business, and then a company comes and says, okay, you got to leave now. We're not going to give you any money. Bye.
Don't give you any compensation at all?
They say, if you don't leave right now, we're not going to give you anything. And then if you leave right now, they're still not going to give you anything for like ages. And like so many people have not been able to get anything. It's shocking. Yeah. So that's the sort of community side of it. And then it's also no economic case. It's going to cost 150 billion pounds to build a train that's going to speed up the travel from Birmingham to London by about 15 to 20 minutes, which is outrageous. It's like such a minor difference. And the train already exists between those two places, and it's fairly fast. And now with COVID, so like there's much less people traveling, much fewer people traveling, right. And it's absolutely not needed to have such a monster project. So in Euston, Battle for Euston, which is still ongoing with people still in the tunnel on day 18 or something, or no, 21 already. Yeah, I think they've been there 3 weeks now in the tunnel under this park, which has these ancient trees in a really polluted part of London. And the trees are like, what's really needed to filter the air quality, to produce oxygen, to provide shade, and soak up the water on heavy rainfalls, and to calm down the noise from all the really big roads around. But instead they are just like, oh, we need to build a temporary taxi stand. So they want to cut all the trees down just to park some taxis for a while the construction's going on, and then to sell off the land for like highest possible profits to development, because it's hugely valuable land in London, and so they just go for luxury developments or whatever. Yeah, I just found the live stream. Let me see if I can share. Oh, entire Facebook Live. Here we go. Can you see that?
Let me change it. Yeah, it's coming up. And boom.
So you should see me with a megaphone sitting in a hammock there.
Yep.
Have you seen this one yet, Tyler?
I have not, no.
So this is a real fun one to watch. I'll share the link in a bit because we're right in the middle of being evicted. The climbing teams come up the tree. My friend Miami and I, he's in the treehouse, and I climbed up from the treehouse that we slept in into this hammock and just sort of singing and then telling the people about what's going on. Now, I'll just play a few moments here.
Yeah.
Don't cut the upper walkway with an open heart and a healing hand. Don't cut the upper walkway, we've got a person on it. That would be a serious health and safety breach. We've got the person hanging from the walkway. Do not cut the walkway. Police, can you please witness what this man with the number 13 of the eviction team is doing over on the other side there? He's up on the tree called
There's a better quality here.
Anna. The community lovely named that tree Anna, and he's being followed by a colleague. But we just must make sure that he doesn't endanger our tree protectors' lives over there. Back to the song. We are the dust that speaks the truth. We are the sun upon the wind. We are the courage to stand forth. We are the change that now begins. On the green out, we will take a stand with an open heart and a healing hand.
That's just the first minute where a lot of things are already happening. There's song, there's the climbing team coming up. You can see this guy Terry from the eviction team there, and the other one didn't even tell us his name, number 17. They didn't tell us what company they work for. They didn't want to give us the paperwork to say that they're legally there. You know, they're coming into our home. We are like legally squatting this place, having a tree protection camp there to stop those trees from being cut down. And they come in and they just sort of lower you down and sort of force you out without showing you any paperwork. So I sort of half tricked them into actually getting what's called the High Court writ, which is a piece of paper that says, you know, who and where and when people are allowed to evict. Yeah, tricky stuff.
How did you trick them to get that? Because never mind, I won't sidetrack that question.
That's all right. Miami in the live stream also asked him several times, can we see the paper? And he's like, no, but it's going to fly away. I'm like, you got so much stuff attached to your harness. You're telling us that you're not able to attach a piece of paper in a way that it doesn't fly away. Such bollocks. And yeah, so I said, I'm going to happily come down on my own volition if I get to see the piece of paper. And then suddenly there was a way for them to find the person that had it and actually bring it up. So I took a picture of it and then sort of came down after a while, not really straight.
No, I followed that story, and I saw that and I heard that, all that, and I love that you bring so much humor and joy into it. Even the antagonists that are trying to stop your cause, you bring positivity and love to them. Like, you're singing positive songs, and then you kept referring to him as 17 because that's what he told you his name was. He didn't want to tell you his name.
Exactly.
Thought that was all really funny. And so do you find that's really helpful to bring humor into it and enjoy the whole time?
Yeah, absolutely. Humor, I think, I find is the best way to bring the story out there, because it is a really uncomfortable story. You know, Al Gore called it an inconvenient truth. When was that? 2007 or something, like ridiculously long time ago. Yeah. And it still is an inconvenient truth that we need to really, really change our ways. Can't just keep going like this. Otherwise we're fucked, to put it bluntly. And yeah, so I co-wrote a song with my ex-girlfriend a while ago. Oh yeah, Sherkan, that you met at the Rainbow as well. We wrote a song together called Methane, which is about another really potent climate gas and how a few really sort of hilarious things about it. If you want, I can play it for you. It's like
so that's methane. Is that pronounced methane where you're from?
Yeah, no. Where here, I always used to sing methane, for years. And then now I come to the UK and everyone's like, but that's pronounced methane. And I'm like, no, it's not. And so now I've changed it to methane. And now you're like, but it's pronounced methane. It's cool. I like the subtle differences between all these different places of, yeah. Do you want me to sing it?
Yeah. Live? Sing right here?
Right here.
Right now?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Live and in color.
Oh, with that guitar that I first met in Morocco?
That exact guitar, exactly. Got some cool stickers on it. There's XR. There's a Shell Must Fall.
Trying to make you the bigger one.
And there's a good one. Hope dies, action begins. So this one's called NH4 Boogie. Methane. Oh yeah, baby, baby. Methane. Oh, it's so potent. Methane. Oh, the temperatures are rising. Methane. Yeah, 100 times stronger than CO2. Methane. Yeah. Give me some of that greenhouse effect. Down in the green by the plow and the hay cart. Fat Dairy Queen cows nibble, nibble, burp, fart. In goes the soybeans, out comes the gases. Worldwide, 560 million liters every day that passes. Yeah. Methane. The best thing since cocaine. Methane. Bring on another hurricane. Yeah, 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 yeah. But you but I but would be down, do be down, but it it might pertain to Dre, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, it might pertain to bulldoze Spain to make a big flat plain. Cut down them forests, grow grain on a plain, drain all the rivers to maintain the methane train. Ooh, let's befoul the water table as irreversibly as we are able. Cattle farms, hectare by hectare. I won't away the transportation sector. Planes do your worst, take a ship, train or van. Cream and beef, ground a Milky Moo man. What? Methane, with stronger farts than aeroplanes. Methane. For Parmesan we go insane now. Methane, I must explain, dissolves into the blue. Methane to my disdain, so much quicker than say yeah yeah yo whoa whoa to woo 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 woo. The greenhouse rain that you swiftly slain without our friends who moo and poo. Without our friends who moo and poo. Reflected heat goes back on through. But don't despair, France nationwide, on wings of destiny we glide, with stringy mozzarella. We are filled with pride, back up to farms that burp and ring, across the field to brown and spring. A tasty steak will make you sing, and methane shall remain the king. Methane. A fart today keeps the doctor away. Methane. Another piece of butter was at another side of butter. Methane. Yeah. Give me some of that methane. Let us marinate in the gases of our big silly friends. Thank you very much.
That was freaking beautiful. That was awesome. Man, that's like a chill, funky song that is really educational and funny.
Great. Glad you liked it.
Yeah, dang, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, that's sort of like a great way, I think, to bring humor into this very tough topic and keeping it light and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to shift gears at some point and talk about all of your travels, your stories, or your adventures, and that guitar had to be like your best friend and all of that, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I got that in 2012, I think, early in the year in Australia when I was traveling there originally. And been traveling ever since with it. Yeah, it's been a very good companion, playing street music wherever I went.
I want to show something that I found of you hitchhiking.
Yeah. What did you find?
Your map.
Oh, yeah.
Your whole travels. Tell me where exactly. Let's see. Hold on. Or when this was. So this map shows so much of. Dang, let me get it.
Sorry, I was in the interview. Oh, yeah. Sorry for not picking up.
Just to say, I'm really hungry.
Oh,
Is there
no.
anything ready, or should I just make some?
Well, we've got the rice. That's cool.
Have you eaten?
No. So you're looking for a file that you downloaded, was it? Because otherwise, I've got the website open.
And,
I'm happy to share it with you as well.
Oh yeah, it's on a website.
Yeah,
huh?
it's that map with all the different places and stuff. I think from my Instagram. Did you talk about share?
Yeah, that's where I got it from.
Let me just share it with you straight away. Here. Right, you should be able to see. Well, this isn't loaded very well. I'll show you these two photos first from a really cool trip 2 years ago now. Can you see my bare foot on the left side there?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is me standing on the back of a tractor, hitchhiking through Turkey with my rucksack on, while the tractor is driving, me sort of holding on well enough to not fall off and still being able to take a picture and a few little video clips there. This is the tractor here. As you can see, there was no real space for me to fit in, but the friendly tractor driver that was on the left there gave me a lift for quite a few kilometers there through Turkey. And this is a really cool website that sort of shows my travels. Just gonna partly reload the page now because it normally shows on the right side not just dots, red dots. That's so weird.
So what is this website's goal? What's the premise of the website itself?
It's called Polar Steps, and it's basically following people's travels. It's really easy to create your own sort of travel blog on it, where you don't just have a website where you put up your nice travel photos and stuff and write about where you were, but you can do that as well as at the same time tracking your location with like very low battery usage. And for some strange reason, it's not showing me the map now. It's never happened before. It might have to do with that live stream that we're doing. Yeah, so there's what's called different trips, and they each have different amounts of steps, as you can see on the left side. So the latest one was 411 days, 5,000 kilometers of traveling. Rebellious Return, which was sort of traveling from Turkey to the UK and then back to Dubai, all by hitchhiking. It's 15,000 kilometers in 2019. Some sailing adventures and some other really cool trips. This is also mostly public. You sort of need to create a. I wonder if you can see. I put it in a different browser. I've got it open here as well. Yeah, so if you go onto polarsteps.com and you just put my name in it, you, I think, won't immediately see all my trips because I've just sort of hidden them to people that are actually part of the page. But if you just put in your name and a password to create a profile, which is quick to do, then my computer is slowing down. Got too much stuff open.
So I have we have this one.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I just said that my computer is slowing down because I got too much open, and I think screen sharing really slows it down.
You could send me the links and I'll do that. But yeah, let me. I almost succeeded. I'm almost there in showing that one picture that hopefully it's the same one that you're thinking.
Yeah, no, I think I know what you're thinking of.
There we go. That shows all of your hitchhiking travels, at least on that website, right?
Yeah, it shows that picture of sort of Europe. Of course, I've gone further, and as the place where we met isn't even on it. That's sort of on the bottom left corner, a bit further south, in Morocco, right. Isn't it? Do you mind stop sharing for a moment, and I'll try that website one last time, where it's actually interactive, where you can see all those dots basically have pictures and text behind them. No, not this one. Only share Firefox with sites you trust. I trust this site today. Okay.
Okay, add to stream. There we go.
Oh, cool. So that's what the page looks like. You see, there's a plane symbol there, which is a lie. That's the sailing trip across the Atlantic, actually.
Whoa!
In the middle.
Don't tell me you hitchhiked that sailing trip.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I'd mention that to you. I hitchhiked a sailing boat from Gibraltar across the Atlantic to the Caribbean.
Oh my god!
This is New Zealand, Aotearoa, where I lived before coming back here. But yeah, so all those dots that you saw in the picture, they're all in Europe, because that's sort of where I hitchhiked around the most, back and forth throughout, let's say, a period of 5 years altogether. And this page actually covers a huge chunk of that. Here, Hitchhiking Europe 2015. It's when it all started. 19,437 kilometers. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So this is the first one, 200 days, 2015. Then Hitchhiking Epic Morocco is the trip that goes down south here.
So when you click on it, does it highlight those dots? Yeah.
Like that. So I'm going to click on this trip now. It's 148 days. It opens the trip. So that means it's about half. The right side is the map, and the left side is sort of like the blog, where you have amount of distance, views, likes, days, photos, countries, and then you can scroll down through all these photos where the trip started in Germany, going through Holland, through France in the winter. There's a few pictures of France. I'm just sort of scrolling through the whole bit. And then in between, there's a bit of writing here and there. Some friends in
This
the
is an
south of France.
amazing website. I can't believe I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I especially when you're traveling and you're moving interesting places, I really recommend it. And it sort of, if you keep location tracker on, it does really track it for you. And then what I've been doing is set one step. It's called a step every day. Every time I sleep somewhere different is a step, right? And then for every step, I was able to add pictures. This is a cool picture. This is my hammock in a cork oak in Portugal.
Look at that. Marcus Gibbon in his natural habitat.
That's right.
Probably singing himself to sleep.
Here, this is me looking out of my hammock. Cork oaks are really cool because they cut sort of parts of the bark every year to get cork. So I've been sleeping in hammocks, for a fair few years. You might remember Sherkan here, with a nice bunch of flowers.
Yeah, I remember that whole trip very vividly.
Oh, that was us before Morocco, actually. So I probably didn't take a picture of you. That chance would have been too small of a chance. But yeah, it does go down to Morocco eventually. Lots of photos.
So are all of those dots and those destinations, did you get from all those different places with exclusively only hitchhiking?
Yeah, absolutely. During my Europe time, I never did. Well, I walked, of course. We took a ferry across to Morocco. We tried to hitchhike a boat there, but that was a paid ferry, fairly short distance. But within Morocco and within Spain, I didn't do any paid travel.
That's amazing. And then did you, how much of your food came from finding food?
Well, that was really cool, sort of a transition during this blog that I could scroll through for hours. I haven't seen it in a long time myself, but maybe I'll share the link and then you can throw it in there for those interested. But yeah, I started off whenever I spent a bit of money on food, my travels in 2015, I would play some music on the streets and make some money back, and so basically end up with zero. But then Sherkan, that you briefly saw in a photo there, that you met her together with me in the desert there at that rainbow gathering, she introduced me to the fun ways of finding food, because in all societies there is food waste, even in the poorest ones that I've come through. You might have to look a bit hotter there, but certainly in Western countries, there's just so much being thrown away, right? So mostly if you go behind supermarkets, that's your best starting point for finding things. But if you keep the mentality and the mind open, you can find food everywhere.
But how though? Because when I met you and that whole rainbow, I mean, I was definitely impacted, and it stuck with me to this day, where I'm just like, hey, I'm starting a podcast. I got to reach out to Marcus just to pick his brain and hear some stories. So I mean, I was a new hitchhike advocate and lover of hitchhiking at that time.
Yeah.
And then I meet you, and I was like, dang, I thought I was pro. This guy. But then the dumpster diving, I'd never really considered that. And then so after meeting you, I was like, all right, well, let's try that. So I go try, and I use the website Trash Wiki, which is really great, a whole community of dumpster divers that are saying where they find food. And I'm looking around, can't remember what city I was in, maybe Berlin. And yes, I was looking around for food, and I get to this dumpster, and it looks like it's where they say to check. And it's just like a really big dumpster that I flip the top off, and I'm looking in, and I'm smelling the dumpster. and it's tall. It's like as high as my head. So like I have to get fully in there, and I didn't do that. I was just like, I don't really see obvious food. It just looks like a bunch of bags. I'm not doing this. So I like bailed. But so what did I do wrong? How can I do it better?
And nothing. You didn't do anything wrong. It really takes someone that's done it a couple of times to take you along with them. So I'm in a really lucky position now. I mean, sort of, I've been dumpster diving all through my travels and finding food in lots of crazy places, and really amazing stuff all along. And when you get and settle down somewhere, which I have sort of now done here in London, it's a either or situation, because if you're traveling, you can move on to another place that has more waste. But I got really lucky here in the northeast of London, where it's not a super rich neighborhood, borough. So there's like little shops, corner shops, where people buy their food, and they get fresh produce every day, and then produce goes off slightly. There's like a tiny dot on it or whatever, and like properly goes off, like slightly moldy onions or whatever. And they just chuck it all in the big dumpster right outside their shop. So on a weekly basis, I would say, I go there with my rucksack, like big one, big backpack, and 2 bike panniers on either side of my pannier, big bag to attach to the bicycle. And in sort of 70% of the cases, I fill everything. I fill those 2 massive bike panniers and the rucksack full of prime food, that we then I bring it back here. We wash it together and then freeze it in the freezer. So sometimes you get to bins and they've just been emptied, and then there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Sometimes you get to bins and they only have a few bags in the bottom, haven't cleaned the dumpster in a while, so that it's really smelly and disgusting. And that's fine. That doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It might just mean that you came slightly at the wrong time, or places change a lot all the time. So if one of the core and most important premises is to not leave a mess, and to openly communicate that, to be friendly and respectful towards anyone that might challenge you or might be curious about what you might do there, to say, I'm just looking for anything that's been thrown away and wasted, because there's perfectly fine food in here, and I'm going to leave no mess. I'm going to leave it cleaner than I found it, and to actually stick to that, and to be nice and friendly. And then that will ensure most likely for you to be able to come back and do it again, and other people to do the same. Whereas otherwise they might put a lock on it, or you've heard of places in France and stuff where they pour soap over the perfectly fine food just to make it, that you can't use it anymore, or other chemicals, whatever. That's how it works. You open the dumpster, you want to make sure that the lid doesn't fall back down. So you might want to pull the dumpster forward a little bit, a foot or so, to open the lid against whatever it's behind.
Say how it's usually in bags.
And Holly says, she just came home. She says it is usually in bags. A lot of it is in bags. So it does take a bit of getting used to. I'm going to say hello.
Hello.
Hey, Holly.
Hello. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm Tyler.
Hi.
Where exactly are you, Tyler?
I'm in San Diego now.
Lovely.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm originally from New Orleans, though.
All right.
And, they're both fantastic cities. If you're ever interested in visiting,
hey.
let me know.
And you come around when you come to London, all right?
Oh my God, I'd love to. And then you could show me how to properly dumpster dive. So
that's
Holly, you're experienced in this as well?
I let him do it, basically.
Doesn't get her hands dirty.
I wash it. I do, because I wash it all when it comes home.
We wash it together.
I've done it a bit with you, not properly. Not sort of. I haven't
a few times.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say about the food itself and the quality?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I mean,
Sure, some stuff.
We don't, obviously get meat. Anything that's, pre-packaged, like bottles of things and tins and cans and stuff, I have no problem with whatsoever. The chances are if it's a couple of days over its sell-by date, it might last another year. Like, that's nuts. The fruit and vegetables, you get all these tropical fruits and really expensive things out of season that you just probably wouldn't buy. And we've all got so used to thinking, it's a bit rotten, or it might be half rotten. But the fact is, the other half's fine and it's free. So, yes, there's a bit of work to be done, like definitely
Cleaning.
I sort of think,
and sorting it away.
When Marcus comes back with a lot of food, you need to set aside an hour to clean it and sort out what's rotten. But you've got a lot of interesting food. It's a bit like obviously getting a mixed box from an organic fruit and veg delivery or something. You don't know what you're going to get, and that's kind of fun too. And I've tried all these things that I've never eaten before, and just got used to eating, especially eating fruit that's nearly going off, but actually it's usually at its best.
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice and ripe. And as Holly said, we are focusing mostly on produce, so fresh fruit and vegetables that I bring back at the most. There's always a bag of bread in the bin. So the two shops around there are both Turkish shops, and they bake these Turkish and Lebanese breads there, and they all put them in a clean black trash bag, and you can feel it from the outside, right? You don't even have to rip the bag open. You can feel it. Feels like squishy bread. And then I know, okay, this is the bread bag, and I usually lift it out completely and then take out all the good breads and sort of filled pastries and whatever.
Lots,
and take those, and all just the plain white bread I leave, because it's just so much that we couldn't even use it ourselves. I try to leave it on top of the bin so that other people that might come past can make use of it. But other things that I find, like a few weeks ago, I found 117 or so of these chocolate cakes that are sealed in plastic, and we just sort of over time, feed them to the kids that like sweet stuff. And I found 10 packets of biscuits the other day, all perfectly fine, just slightly over the date, you see.
But those things over the sell-by date means nothing. Just means nothing.
Crisps,
No, really don't. Especially for those foods and cans, like canned foods, it means nothing.
Hundreds and hundreds of chewing gum and sort of, these mints and stuff. Yeah, so lots of stuff. And then we sort of store it. We got 12 jars of pickled gherkins recently. Just sort of keep them outside where they...
Cornichon.
Yeah, cornichon, exactly.
Wow. And so I remember, I remember when we had this discussion. When was that, Rainbow?
That was in 2016 in March.
Wow, look at that memory. Jeez. Very good.
April.
I remember you saying that a lot of the reason is not, it's not even a financial reason that you're doing this. Well, can you talk more about like the reason that you're motivated to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just gonna get back to some food.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to have you on the show briefly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So if you think about it, that it makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways, because of course the most obvious is a financial thing. I get to spend more time with my new bonus kids. I sort of stepped into a stepfather role, but we don't call it stepfather, but bonus father, because they still have their real father that they see 3 days a week or so. And anyway, I get to spend more quality time with the kids that I don't have to spend on working, or more time doing my activism, which I find so important, that I don't have to chase the money because of being able to sustain a huge chunk of this family with food that's otherwise wasted. That's one part. Then, well, as Holly already said, it's nice to try out new stuff, to have this mixed bag all the time. But mostly, if you look at it from an environmental perspective, I think we're currently producing food enough for 12 billion people, and we have, I think, 8 billion people on the planet, and 1 billion of them are starving. No one would need to be would need to starve if there wasn't so much food waste. It's just that capitalism requires, perfectly fine looking produce and products with the sell by date, which is such a horrible invention, that and supermarkets don't have storage capacity, so they can't just keep it for later oftentimes, so they have to throw it away when a new batch arrives. It might still be perfectly fine. It might not even have gone off yet. It's just that the new batch has arrived, they have no place to put it, so they throw it away. And yeah, so we are reducing waste. So I've shockingly learned how the waste is dealt with here in London. The vast majority of what goes into the regular bins is actually burnt in incinerators, which are from the 60s. So they're really old technology, and they are highly polluting in the area. It's not very far. We cycled past it yesterday on our way to the forest. It's like this huge chimney and sort of massive smoke, and we could smell it in the air. And so much of that stuff in there, in those regular bins, including the ones that I get my food from, those skips, those dumpsters, it's perfectly fine stuff. Even if it was food that had gone off, you should compost it and make soil from it, rather than
burn it with fire.
And with every ton of trash, you have 1 ton of CO2 plus all the extra pollutants directly affecting the air. So it's like really bad for climate change. It's really bad for local air quality. Holly's son Laurie has asthma and suffers, and I think it's all to do with the air quality here living in the city, and that's just not the right way. So reducing waste is one of the key aspects. In general, people are often seeking solutions to climate change and the problems in the world, and finding technological ways to go on a different route, or keep consuming, but sort of do it more green. But instead, we need to reduce consumption. We need to reduce waste, because then we don't have to burn so much or bury it in landfill sites, which is equally horrible for the environment.
Man, I think that's really cool about what Holly was saying, that you get to be exposed to foods that you wouldn't eat otherwise, or like some foods that you just don't choose to eat because it's not like in that chain of supply. There's a lot of waste there. There's a lot of harm there that you don't want to participate in. Yeah. But then after all that line of waste and contamination, to produce it, to bring it here, that exotic fruit or whatever it is, the worst part is it's not even consumed. It's just wasted. So then, yeah, that's another benefit that I didn't think of is, okay, you're not only giving that final destination actual purpose, so then it's giving that produce actual purpose, which is fantastic, but you're also getting to enjoy all these foods that you wouldn't ever eat that are from another part of the world. Yeah. That has all kinds of benefits. Yeah, I see. You could just list them. It's just so many.
Yeah, and the less waste there is in the bins, the better. So even if it was just taking out, even if it isn't food, if you see something in a bin, in like a black bin, in like a regular bin that is easily compostable, people throw away plants in like with soil on them. I'm like, why don't you put the soil on the grass and it would like feed the grass, rather than it having to be taken away with a truck that costs diesel and then be processed in a big machine that costs electricity or whatever. Yeah, it's the system is deeply flawed, and there's all these easy hacks to it to reduce the impact, and everyone can have.
I like those easy hacks. But so the dumpster diving, I still want to know maybe more practical ways to do it, or what maybe I need to shift my expectations. And finally, I will have to just go to London and do that with you to go on.
You can do it in San Diego as well, mate. I'm happy to video call you, talk you through the situation. So when I went with friends to like big supermarkets and stuff, we'd go like professional. We'd like take maybe even gloves, or at least water and soap, so that when we get after getting our hands dirty, we just wash them off before touching anything else. A really cool trick that Holly's really excited about that I learned from traveling, and that's really useful in regards to dumpsters, is sometimes there's a bit of yucky stuff on the outside. Let's say you have a perfectly fine sealed package of food like the ones you've seen, and then a rotten tomato or it's like a half squished tomato above it where a bit of juice ran onto it. Right? It's still fine. It's just tomato juice. You can wash it off. But what you do is you take a bottle of water with you. This is water bottle, not vodka, even though
I was not sure earlier. It looked like vodka.
And you unscrew it beforehand, and just if you have a bottle with a lid, you unscrew it, put it aside, ready for you to go. And then with like yucky hands, you sort of pick up the bottle with one hand and you take a swig, right? And you hold the water in your mouth. And you put the bottle down, and then you've got both hands free, and you can slowly let the water out at your own pace from your mouth while washing your hands like under a tap. So you can actually like get the cleaning happening much better than having to pour over one hand. Genius. Or like she loves it. Or
you can wash both hands at the same time.
Exactly, and you can use soap, and whatever is left over in terms of water.
Very much water.
Exactly. You don't. You hardly ever need more than one swig full of water, and usually less. So then the rest you can just drink and make the most of the water that you brought anyway. So when traveling and you might only have one bottle that you carry around, this is a really efficient way of keeping, hygienic and reducing water. Once again.
Okay, I like that a lot. And what about where you open the dumpster and you're just looking at a bunch of black garbage bags? Like you can't really tell what's there. You said that you could kind of touch the outside to see what's bread, like the bread bag.
Yeah,
but that raises a lot of questions.
No, it does. It does. This dumpster that I always go to has 3 different categories of bags, and I've sort of learned to get to know them by now. One is the bread bag that's completely fine and that I'm after and that I take out. The second kind of bag is actually actual rubbish, which was in a bin, and like customers would throw an empty can or something in it, so you can feel sort of either a bottle that's an empty bottle or a can or some whatever packaging material. And the third one in those bins is meat that they cut and sort of old stuff that they throw it in the bag as well. And you can feel that. It feels sort of like when you touch it, a chicken that you eat or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, that's the meat bag. And then if
stay away from that.
Yeah, and if I ever get my hands, I make sure to wash them as fast as possible, and to keep the food that I'm actually taking away from that stuff. Occasionally, it does get yucky where you have to like lift a dripping bag of something like meat off of something really amazing that they unfortunately put into the bin first. Usually that's not the case. Yeah. There is a main difference, of course, from shop bins to regular dumpsters for like household waste, which do still hold a significant quantity of food and other things that you can reuse, especially in rich areas. But in general, the quantity of good stuff will be lower, and the quantity of actual rubbish, like empty vessels, empty cartons and so forth, will be higher. So that's sort of next level, let's say. And then another level again is when you walk through a pedestrian mall or a shopping complex with sort of open bins, and people eat, like they buy some popcorn or some roasted chestnuts or even ice cream, and then they have like half of it. And then sort of you have the guy that sells the chestnuts, and then not the bin right next to him, but like 2 bins away is where you find the packets half full of chestnuts, right? Still warm. You get them out and you're like, oh yeah, they're still fresh. So that's bins, right? So it's like on the street, and you find typically people's half-eaten lunches. And yeah, with Corona, of course, you got to make sure you stay healthy and do only what's within your comfort zone. But if you're in a tricky situation or you just simply don't mind, then that's absolutely fine. Or if there's homeless people that are actually longing for food that need because they're hungry, then oftentimes I find things in bins and sort of give them to the people, and they are appreciative of that because it's otherwise wasted.
Yeah. Definitely. Have you ever had any negative consequences? Like, what are some of the negative consequences? Have you gotten sick, or has anybody chased you like with a weapon? That's my trash.
With a pitchfork. Jurkan once did a silly one in Morocco in the heat of the day, where she picked up a yogurt cup that had clearly been there for a little bit, and she ate it. And I was like, dairy on a hot day, and she got a bit sick on the tummy. But that was the worst. To me, it never happened. I got a fairly good digestive system, I must say. I never got sick from it. It's pretty basic. If you use your eyes and it looks weird, like moldy, don't eat it. If you feel it, and you know, if you smell it and it smells all right, if it looks all right, and you don't even need to check the date unless it's meat or eggs. But I don't consume those from bins anyway. So just use your senses and you should be fine. And I've been fine all along. And then for other things where you're not sure, you could heat it up and fry it in the kitchen, whatever. Cook it in some way or another. And in terms of people chasing me, I never got beaten up or anything. I never got arrested for it. I know of people that have, and it's a great way to make a stand, to bring it into the system, to say, this is a multi-billion-dollar multinational company that is suing me for stealing something from them, right? Because it's their property, which is worth $0. How bad does it look on their PR, right? To sue an individual that went through a dumpster to get something that's considered rubbish. So I recommend people that are being picked up on it to go far and bring it into the court system, into the legal system, but it really doesn't happen. I mean, especially if you're respectful and friendly, as I said, the Turkish people around, they befriended me. They're like, oh yeah, you should get a camera and live stream on YouTube. You could get like really famous on a YouTube channel. They gave me all these tips. They're like, yeah, I know a guy on YouTube that does that, and and so I became friends with one of the guys from the shops. And then he was like, yeah, and my friend lives in sort of has a shop in the rich part of town, and he's got all this produce that might have a slight bruise, but can't sell it anymore. And so a few times this guy from the shop, he rang me, he said, I got a few bags for you, and I just went there and picked up the food, because there's just so much food that is going to waste. Charities can only take things that don't have to be in the cooling circle. So if you take something out of the fridge, they can't donate that. I'm not sure if in the US there's legislation on these things and what exactly it is, but yeah.
Sorry, do you think we've still got plantain?
Yes, and the bottom one probably. Yeah, plantain. We found a lot, like 50 plantains, and just cut them up and froze them and Holly's
Nice.
just cooked them up.
Yeah, the freezer would be great asset, like you said before, a way to maximize those findings. Are you guys about to eat soon?
Yeah, and a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I did definitely want to talk about hitchhiking and tips. I've developed my own rules. I wanted to pass by you and see how you felt about them.
Good.
My favorite rule is the 30-minute rule. It's the minimum amount of time required for you to give any decent spot that you really like. If you like a spot, you got to be there 30 minutes, and you can't give up before 30 minutes. Is that what you would agree with, or what do you think?
I like it. What does giving up mean for you? Just going home and taking a bath, or
no, changing spots, go to a different spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it depends on several factors. I'm most of all influenced by the company. I much prefer hitchhiking with someone else, and if that's the case, then I often spend ages in a place if I get really stuck. But because you have each other, I take out the guitar, start playing, the car drivers find it funny, and someone eventually stops. When I'm all by myself and getting a bit sick of the place that I'm in, I go by exactly the same figure with what I call hitch and hike. So I stand in a place for 30 minutes, like you do, and then I walk along the road for 30 minutes while putting my thumb out. It's often harder for cars to stop because they can't quite stop everywhere in most places. But I get to see a change of scenery, different things, maybe pick some flowers on the way for the drivers. And then after 30 minutes, my shoulders might hurt from carrying, or I just want to stop again at a good place where cars can actually pull over, and so I do another 30 minutes there. So I very much agree with that rule.
The hitch and hike. I get it now. Yeah. That's really good because, I mean, one way or another, you're moving, you're going the direction that you wanted.
Yeah.
That's great. And then, so then as I was hitchhiking, sometimes by myself, sometimes with a companion, it's huge difference of a guy versus a girl hitchhiking, right? The girl will get picked up a lot faster than the guy, but carries more risk because they're more targeted, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then your guitar, I'm sure, like you were painting that picture of you playing a guitar while you're waiting. That's so inviting. That's helped. What are some other things that you've discovered to help you get picked up quicker?
The most important thing, I think, is eye contact. No, there's lots. The most important thing that comes to mind straight away is eye contact and smile. If you're like a grumpy, sad, wet-looking person by the side of the road, maybe even like shabby clothes where they might think you might be smelly, your chance of being picked up is much lower. I was once picked up in Australia by a woman, and she said, "Well, it was good that you were standing. I never pick up walking hitchhikers because I know they're smelly, because they're walking and they're sweating from walking because it's hot in Australia, and only the ones that are standing." No, that's definitely good. And looking people directly into the eye makes a difference, rather than just sort of putting your thumb out and being on your phone or whatever. That's a really bad one.
Being on the phone, how terrible.
Well, sometimes you got to be to check your location and your distance, and you get an important message or whatever. But try to limit it. Or if there's two people, then the other should hitchhike. You know, eyes and thumb, and you can take turns. That's cool. But yeah, I mostly travel by not thumbing, but rather on petrol stations. So that's a much quicker way of getting around, is to go to a petrol station, stand near the entrance with my rucksack, easily identifiable as a traveler. That's also just wanting to go somewhere, like the people in the car, and not wanting anything else. And then, with a big smile on my face, approaching people that either come into the petrol station to pay, or maybe while they're filling up their petrol, I go to the vehicles, and I have like 3 basic sentences that I've sort of refined over the years to be the ultimate best.
That was going to be my question. What do you say to them? Because I did that too, and I had a lot of success, but what do you have for?
Well, what I found works best for me is the foot in the doorway, which is like a psychological approach, where the first question you want to be answered with a yes, ideally. So I let's say this is the motorway, and I'm on the petrol station, and they're going that way. Then the first question is, are you going that way? Because everyone they basically got to go that way. So, for example, you're just before San Diego coming south. You're like, excuse me, are you by any chance going towards San Diego? Yeah, I'm not saying to San Diego, but towards San Diego. So even people going past or just a bit shorter, they will say yes, ideally. I mean, of course, if they're really scared or like actually just doing a U-turn, which some people tend to do, or at least they claim to. That's a common excuse. No, I'm actually turning around. I'm going the other way. Yeah, right.
Or they'll do that after they tell you that. They weren't planning to, but because they told you that you're watching, they'll do it and then do another U-turn later.
That's true. So that, for the people that aren't prepared, and many aren't prepared, and many aren't afraid, if you ask them friendlily, they're like, yeah, I am. I'm happy to tell them that. That's not that much giving away. They just sort of automatically assume that anyway. And once they said yes, you can be like, and is there a chance you could drop me off at the next petrol station, or sort of another 10K up the road? Or if you're on in a smaller bit. I sometimes get to the point where I go cada kilómetro ayuda. Every kilometer helps, and I just want to get from, you know, even tiny distances. If the landscape's really beautiful and I just want to keep moving forward slowly. So that's the second question. Is there a chance you could drop me at the next petrol station? And they'll be like, but you are at a petrol station. Yeah, that's how I do it. I hop from station to station and I eventually get to where I need to go. And then they're like, oh yeah, cool, sounds fun. And then they give you a lift. Sometimes they're like, oh, we don't have any space. And they're like, a lot of people are really bad with organizing their car. And you're like, you can offer them to help. You can be like really friendly. If you don't mind, I'm happy to help you reorganize your car. Or like, I'm really good at Tetris. I can fit those parcels in the boot, and I'm sure we'll fit together.
Is it all right me having this conversation?
Yeah, that's fine. And that's a good one. Otherwise, just stay friendly, and sometimes they go in, they're like, no, they go in, they come back out after paying, they're like, where actually do you want to go? And then you can get into a conversation. So knowing how to read a map is quite important, and knowing what places are nearby and where people might be going to will help you. If they're all going to Heathrow Airport and you just need to get to that petrol station that's just behind Heathrow Airport, then don't go with someone that goes to Heathrow Airport. Otherwise you get stuck in a place. That happens occasionally. So good map reading skills helps. I recommend maps.me on Android or Google Play Store, because it's offline. You download the maps offline, and you can really easily make bookmarks to where you come from, where you want to go, where you've been, where your petrol stations are, and all that sort of stuff. And even in the pandemic, I was quite sort of worried that Corona might completely change hitchhiking. I've tried it since then. It still works exactly the same way. Some people are like, no, we're in a pandemic, I'm not giving you a lift. That was like 1 or 2 people out of the many people that I've asked. But most people completely forget about it. Once they're in a friendly conversation with someone, they're like, yeah, come on in. and we've offered people to sit in the back and wear our masks for those that seemed a bit worried, and they accepted and preferred that. So that's another thing you can offer. Yeah.
The maps. So HitchWiki, do you still use that? Because that's a really good resource, right? Hitchwiki.com or something?
Yeah, HitchWiki, I think .org. HitchWiki.org is a great resource, especially for those starting. I like using it when I leave a big city, like London or San Diego. I'd put in HitchWiki and then directly San Diego, and then it'll tell you, depending on which direction you want to leave the city, north, south, east, west. You wouldn't be going west in San Diego, because that would end up in the ocean, right? Hey,
you know your geography, even the United States.
Been to San Diego. Good friend of mine used to live there. I swam with the seals in La Jolla Cove. Kids pool. Amazing place. San Diego. Awesome. We'll never forget that. So you look at which direction you want to go, for example, north towards LA, and then it'll describe the 2 different, or whatever, how many different options there are, petrol stations or highways to take, and where to start. And so that's a great one. Otherwise, for my day-to-day, just getting around, I just look at my maps.me, find a petrol station nearby, zoom in, mark it, and then you can go from there. Yeah.
Wow. And again, this is more kind of like a premise for you, or like a code of ethics almost, because you do have a car, or do you not?
No, I don't. Holly actually just sold hers. We've been together for 8 months or so now, and she's quite environmentally conscious, obviously, which is really good. And that's also how we met, and through Extinction Rebellion and singing. Beautiful story. But yeah, so I was like, why don't you sell your car? You live in a place with great public transport, and we've got ways to cycle. And so she has a little trike, which is for both kids can sit on the back, and she pedals, and it looks really cute, and everyone loves it. And so I once had a car in my life when I was like 18 or 19, and I drove it for a year, and then I had an accident, and then I never got a car again. So I can drive when I have to, but I usually don't.
Have you ever gotten into a bad situation hitchhiking, like that thing that everybody always fears, or at least in the U.S. especially, they thought that I'd be murdered for sure if I hitchhiked.
I hitchhike myself in the US a fair bit, and it is quite different because it's like the country where the people are most afraid, I think.
And have weapons and eat
there
and
is
more poison than other places.
exactly.
So we're all deranged. Like there's a lot of deranged people.
Especially with the weapons and people having so many, there is, I guess, a real risk attached. But I've been in many vehicles where they're like, talking about the gun that they have under their seat and stuff just to feel safe. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine, as long as you don't use it on me. Yeah, no, I have never gotten into a bad situation. It's once again about respect and being nice. And if there's like a weirdo that gives you a lift occasionally, then you just, tell them to drop you off soon. Like there's nothing. Like once a driver was like skipping lanes quite dangerously, and it was luckily just a short ride that I joined him for, and was happy to get out of that vehicle after a while. But that's about as bad as it gets. No one's ever stolen anything from me, fingers crossed.
No one's ever been like threatening or like, I guess, trying to make a sexual pass at you or something?
No, luckily not. I know of women having those situations, and there needs to be basic precautions taken. It is ideal to travel as a couple, or a guy and a girl, to avoid such situations or to greatly reduce the risks. But also there's a great articles on female solo hitchhiking on hitchwiki.org that I recommend reading for all those that feel more vulnerable, that want to try it anyway. My ex-girlfriend, she hitchhiked from Portugal to Turkey all by herself, nice and slowly, and she didn't have any issues. I mean, maybe a strange person sometimes, but a fast driver. But basically, most people on the road just want to get somewhere safely, and they might as well share the lift with you.
Wow. How many rides have you had to turn down because of bad vibes?
Oh, that's a good one. Not very many, because I'm fairly trusting. A few times I've probably said, okay, never mind, there's another guy that wanted to give me a lift. But I couldn't, not more than 5 in all those years. I usually just go with what gets going.
And then what do you pack for sleeping? I mean, is it a hammock most of the times, or do you use a tent, sleeping bag?
I really like hammock sleeping, and I always do it pretty much. I don't mind tents if there is already one there, but usually I don't sleep in tents. So yeah, depending on the temperature, if you're like warm sort of conditions, summer or whatever, a sleeping bag is a thin sleeping bag, and a hammock is minimum. Water bottle, maybe some food, change of clothes, and that's it. Nice and lightweight. The more lightweight you pack, the more flexible you are, and you can climb trees with it and so forth. But then as it gets colder, I really recommend a mat. Like a yoga mat is really good to put inside the hammock to sleep on, so that you don't have that cold from underneath. Even in summer, if it's cold winds or whatever, or by the sea, you can get that. And once you get into like rainy, potentially rainy situations, you might want to take a emergency tarp that you can rig above. I have a thin rope that I put between the trees above my hammock that I just throw a big tarp over with, which is this sort of, when you paint a room, you have this thick plastic, or like plastic that you cover furniture with. The thickest one of those, it's like clear plastic, and just the edges with duct tape sort of surrounded to make it stronger so that it doesn't rip, and then sort of the corners with a bit of duct tape and a bit of string and some guy lines, has kept me dry very well for a very long time. Otherwise, if it is raining, you don't have a tarp, look for some shelter to put your hammock under, on a bridge or under a motorway, which is really loud. But I've never really done that. But abandoned houses with a porch where they have 2 pillars and you can, put your hammock underneath, a roof or something. There's usually something, a gazebo in the Caribbean where it rains a lot. They have these public things that just like a roof with 4 pillars, and that's great in the park just to sleep in with a hammock.
How are you able to sleep in a hammock in those places? Like I'm imagining it's hard to tie the ends to something where you could hang.
Yeah, no, usually there's a way.
With all those guy lines and things.
Yeah. Over time, you learn your knots well enough to attach yourself to crazy things. I've hammocked between a telephone pole and a rock before, or in the desert, where there's just that rainbow gathering was quite extreme. Where we met, and there were sort of really small trees in the desert. Do you remember? It's like really thin.
Yeah, they're really small and thin, weak trees.
Yeah, we managed to find a couple that were just in the right distance for a hammock, and we managed to string it up. So even in the Sahara, Mohammed Rislan, we managed to sleep in the desert.
Have you had any negative stories or some scary situations just sleeping in the hammock in public?
No, when I'm in public, when I go to cities or whatever, and I arrive in the evening, or even if I don't arrive in the evening, I only put up my hammock after dark because it's safer to not be seen. And then if I can, I climb up a high tree and put the hammock high up. So that's really cool. Get a good view, sleep right under the birds, and who's going to climb up there and mess with you?
That's really cool.
And you're safe of the people don't look into the trees, especially not when it's dark. So if you get up when it's light in the morning, it's fine. You're safe off the ground. Generally, hammocking, you're safe off for dogs or ants or snakes. So that's greater than sleeping on the ground. And no, with people, very rarely that someone. I don't really engage in the negative stories so much, so I don't really remember them very well. But
no, that's multiple levels like greater than sleeping in a tent. Actually, all those things you said, like climbing up a tree and doing that, no one will see you. You avoid the ants and critters on the ground. When I was vagabonding around Europe and hitchhiking, I would go into a city, and not knowing where to put my tent yet, I would use Google Earth or Google Maps on satellite view. And I would try and see where's the most grassy areas, like trees and things, so that I wouldn't be seen. But this was like in a city, and it was hard. I'd find like a bush and like go into the bush. But a hammock would be a lot better.
Yeah. Feel free. You're hungry, darling. Yeah. No. We're probably wrapping up shortly anyway, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to hear one of the stories that you probably had before that you were thinking that you might share from hitchhiking or traveling around.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year, that story with that trip with the tractor in Turkey, that was real fun. I hitchhiked. I was on my way back to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I didn't want to fly. I wanted to fly as little as possible, so I hitchhiked from London to Dubai. And I came up with this thing called speed hitchhiking, where I just keep going, basically, and I try to find the fastest way to travel. So like cars rather than trucks in Europe is a big difference. And yeah, I sleep in vehicles during the night if I get lifts, and otherwise I just put up my hammock and continue first thing in the morning. So I managed to get all the way to Dubai in 10 days. And
10 days from London?
Yeah, from London.
Holy.
Yeah, it was a really, really good trip. And one of the lifts was that tractor that I showed earlier. And on that same day of
that
the trip,
won't get you there that fast.
yeah. I got invited. I was by the side of the road thumbing. 2 young lads picked me up, really friendly guys from Istanbul. And they're like, yeah, what are you doing here? And I'm just hitchhiking to Iran. Um, um, yeah, and they were going to a wedding in Turkey, and they were like, "You want to come to wedding?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds so much fun." And so they took me to this wedding with like 200 people, and amazing Turkish music, and people dressed up really nicely, and yeah, and no alcohol. Yeah, because it all Muslim, sort of celebration. There was no alcohol. It's really, really different. And we were the only table that those guys from Istanbul. In Istanbul, they drink alcohol. It's sort of okay there because it's fairly Western. And they had brought some vodka or something that we were drinking together. Anyway, that was a great one. But yeah, there's just sometimes, one time I hitchhiked to Germany from Spain, and a woman just happened to be going from Spain to Germany as well, and so we shared 1,300 kilometers in the same really small car together from the north of Spain all the way through France to the south of Germany. From 6 a.m. in the morning to midnight, we were in the same car together.
Man, the one of my craziest was going from, I think it was Warsaw to Vienna, and I got it all in one trip. That it was a Polish family, and they were on their way to Italy, doing a big road trip to Italy, and their car was full. They had no room for me, but he still took me in with his wife and his son, and I was so happy just to have it that I didn't care that I had to put my whole bag on top of my lap, and I was squished for what was that, like 6-hour car ride or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just like, don't think about how long you're going to be cramped here. Just breathe and enjoy and talk. So I wanted to ask, I guess, of etiquette. Like, so what do you think about falling asleep in the ride? Like, is that...
Well, as I briefly mentioned, I do it a lot. I think it also depends on the situation, as everything. If the driver picks you up because they are at risk of falling asleep and they need to be entertained, then don't just go and take a nap, but rather speak to them and keep them awake for the drive that might be through the night or whatever. That's happened to me a fair few times, and it is sometimes hard then to keep yourself awake, but there's ways better than the driver falling asleep and that being quite risky.
Because that is one of the reasons that they pick up hitchhikers, right? Is to stay awake and talk.
Yeah, a lot of truck drivers are all by themselves for most of their work time, so they really appreciate having company and hearing some cool stories. But in general, if you're really tired and sort of conversation isn't like super necessary and it's a long ride, maybe you can maybe ask them if it's all right for you to sleep a while. I was in a truck in Mexico, really long distance as well, and it was sort of getting dark and cold, and dark in the evening, and he was like, well, if you want to, you can just lie down on the bed. And I just I keep driving, and I said, are you sure, is that all right, on your bed? And he's like, yeah, it's fine.
That's the golden thing. Like, if they say that, it's like, oh.
And yeah, it was a magical moment, and I was really happy. And so when I did, I laid down in the evening, and I woke up again, and it was morning, like 9 a.m. And the guy, I looked at him, he looked exactly the same, like he had not slept, and he was still driving, and he did not look any tireder, and it was because they are popping a lot of pills in Mexico, those truck drivers, to keep awake, to stick to the deadlines. And that was quite interesting to learn about. He told me about the pills and showed them to me and stuff.
What pills are they? Do you know?
Don't remember the name of them, but it's like a drug that keeps you awake. And
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, you got so many more stories that I'd love to hear. Another time. I appreciate you joining me for this and just bringing to everybody's world all this incredible info. And
thank you, Tyler. Really good format. It's been a great pleasure to be able to share, and be good to stay in touch.